Alright, man, what's going on? As promised, doing a quick live. I wanted to get a chance to go over some of the things that we skipped over on Stash Talk. We just kind of had a time constraint, so wasn't able to cover everything. So I thought I'd just run it back, and also I was getting cooked about it. Like, yo, how you ain't saved the live? You've been talking about it for like a month or more. So, that's on me. Still learning how to use all of this. So, so it's like three quick sort of categories, three quick categories that I wanted to cover that I didn't get a chance to. So I think it's important for me to start that conversation, because that's really what it is for me in particular. Like, just sparking more conversations around ownership and assets and the why of it. Not necessarily to do it because we just want to do it. Like, the reasons behind doing it. Like, the why of it all. The why of it all is like one of the most important pillars of, like, going after it and getting money and all of that. Like, mindset is the first thing. It's the most important thing, but the why of it is crucial in doing all of this, right? So, enough talking. Three categories, and the first one would be, what do we need, right? What do we need in our community, like collectively? And a lot of us, we got a problem with working together. It's a legacy thing of slavery and whatever else, right? So we have a distrust, a healthy distrust with each other, and that's something we need to name it, we need to identify it, and then we can, we're able to put the necessary things in place in order to remedy that entire practice, or that entire state of being, right? So what we need, my personal opinion, every black family should be structured like a corporation. That's just the way, wealthy people do it. And if you think about it, family is sort of like a company. It's a collection of people together. Sometimes it's a common goal, sometimes there isn't, but it's a company. It's a collection of people. So every black family should be structured like a corporation. We should retain lawyers, CPAs, a therapist, and a family doctor. A family therapist and a family doctor. Those four things are integral, in the family dynamic and the types of families and institutions that we're trying to build. Like, the family should be run like a business, and we're trying to build that up. We're trying to build that into an institution. And those four core professions are vital, are critical to the entire equation, to the entire setup, the entire landscape of the whole situation. So it's important that we get lawyers, CPAs, therapists, and a doctor on deck. We need that, period. All members within that company, within that corporation / company, all members should have life insurance, from the grandmother, grandfather, all the way down to the goldfish, for those black families that got pets. Not all of us got pets and shit, but every single person, the moment you're born, policy, and we're good to go. And after all those things are in place, life insurance for everybody, then that institution needs protection and it needs planning. So ultimately, every black family should have a trust set up in place, right? And the trust should be holding whatever corporations are held within that corporation. So like I said, family structured as a corporation. We run it like a corporation, right? And while in the process of the corporation acquiring things, we need legal protection and asset protection. So obviously assets need to go within the corporation, and those corporations that own those assets need to be inside of a trust. So at the end, when the wealth and the assets are being transferred from one generation to the next, we already know what the game plan is. It's in the trust. It's well protected. You save probate with certain things. In Canada, property, you still got to go through probate. So I don't really think it's you could skip on the taxes for that particular thing. But life insurance policies and all of that, those are non-taxable in Canada. So all the insurance policies held by the family members, the trust should be the beneficiary of that. And why that makes sense is if the trust is the beneficiary, then the family ultimately becomes self-sustaining after a couple of generations. Because if it's like, for instance, the Lewis Family Trust, if there's 30 of us and we all got life insurance and the trust is the beneficiary, and 1 to 3 generations, the family is self-sustaining because it has its own, essentially its own capital structure, like its own little mini bank. Because every time somebody passes on, the assets or the payout, the death benefit for the life insurance policy is paid to the trust for the benefit of the next generation, right? So it's just money stockpiling inside of a protected system that was set up in place by the previous generation. So that's the first component of the whole thing, titled What We Need. Moving on, what do we do next? So once we have those structures in place, because the reason why lawyers are so important, because we need a law for the land. We need a layout so everybody knows what their collective or respective duties are, what their investment is or what their portion is. So there's no need for fighting. Everybody understands what they invest, what they put in, or what they're entitled to, so we can move forward. So now what do we do next? The family / corporations starts the acquisition of assets that produce cash flow or possess the ability to produce cash flow and generate equity, like the growth of equity. So obviously, the purchase of residential and commercial real estate, that's one way to go about it. It could be a private business as well. Depends on how well the business does and how well it grows. Like, it could either produce cash flow or it grows in value based on, whatever industry or whatever field it operates in. So there's that. Also, in the purchasing of property, so let's say we could purchase together. So let's say it's me and my sister, right? My sister wants to purchase a property. She has the credit. She may not have all of the income, but so she has the credit. She has decent income, but she's short on the down payment, right? So she got the credit. She got the income. She's a little short on the down payment. I'm good to help her with the down payment, but I'm not necessarily in the best place, maybe credit-wise or income-wise, right? So what I can do is, me and my sister, we could sit down with an accountant and draft the trust agreement, right? So now, if she's short $50,000, I could loan her that $50,000 through the trust agreement. That's another way people purchase property in other communities that we don't participate in, because we often want to do handshake deals, and that's where a lot of things get fuzzy, and that's where the gray becomes the undoing of the family structure, the relationship, everything, because oftentimes people just run off with the money or to squander it, right? So in that case, me and my sister sit down with the accountant, we draft the trust agreement, I loan her the money, so she has the necessary 20% down to purchase the property, or whatever it is, right? To purchase the property. So when she does that, now that trust agreement is registered with the CPA, the accountant, right? So in the event that she will be the only person on the title or the ownership, so in the event that she sells the property, I'm entitled to the payout of whatever the appreciated amount is. So in a way, I'm protected, but I'd still have to, if there's any funny business involved, I'm protected because we have a legally binding agreement, right? So a trust agreement via a CPA, accountant, whatever you want to call them, is necessary in order to be able to get deals done and start the acquisition process of acquiring assets for the family, right? And long term, once we acquire enough assets, residential real estate, commercial real estate, businesses, whatever, we should have a stockpile of capital, right? Through the equity in those properties in the real estate, or equity in those private businesses that we purchase, so we have an interest in, or in the form of stocks. A lot of people on the internet, there's this back and forth thing. You either stocks or your real estate. You need both, right? You need both, and you need to have a healthy exposure on either side, but not overexposure, right? Because when things go sideways on either one, you want to be able to be in a position where you can hedge. Hedge simply means that you're covered on both sides if one of those particular markets go down. So we need to learn to strategically utilize debt to create more income, to create more money, right? So the entire system that we live on, system of capitalism, is built on trust and it's built on debt, right? So the fastest way to create money is through debt. Think about it. When you go to purchase a property, the money that they loan you for a mortgage is money that wasn't in circulation. Like it never existed. It literally is just money they create out of thin air. So think about it on the flip side now. If we're the family or the collection of families that built up a solid asset base, and we have a sizable amount of equity throughout our entire portfolio of assets, real estate, businesses, stock portfolio, so on and so forth. Now we can effectively become a bank. We can effectively play that game, because now we can create more income, and we can create more income using our equity / our capital, aka the money that we have in these assets. Because, like I said, the fastest way to money, or the fastest way to cash, is through debt. So if we're able to go into a particular community or our community and say, like, okay, you want to purchase the supermarket, or you want to purchase the supermarket that's for sale, we have the money privately, we could loan that to you at X amount interest rate annually, and this is the structure of the deal, so on and so forth, and at the end it will be whatever fees pay out or whatever, right? So it's about thinking strategically, and it's about thinking big picture, because a lot of times, like with black people, we're really short-sighted. And I want to make sure that when I'm talking, I want to be fair, because there's a lot of things historically that we face, right? And I don't want to sit here and lament any of those. I don't want to rehash none of that shit, because it really don't do anything for us in present day. Like, all right, cool, like, we know the history, but what are we doing? Like, all of this shit that we talk, what are we doing for it, right? So I don't really like rehashing any of that. We know what it was, and we know what it is, right? So we just gotta keep in mind that, like, it's a mindset shift. Like, we're working towards being in a better place and at a higher standard, right? And the last pillar would be, what's the wealth strategy? Obviously, the first thing is we gotta work our way up, right? Once we get the infrastructure in place with the lawyers, the CPAs, then, like I said, we could go out and start acquiring assets. And then the wealth strategy becomes, we could go into the residential real estate investing market, or we could go into the commercial real estate market. So that could mean shopping, strip plazas, strip malls, or apartment buildings. You know what I'm saying? Like a small apartment building to start, and then, it could be like 12, 14, 16, 18, 20 units to start. And then eventually, in a generation or two, we didn't scale all the way up to 100 unit buildings, 200 unit buildings, whatever it is. But my personal opinion, you could go either way with it, but, like, when you're not coming for money, real estate property is the the genesis of wealth. Like, it's the very foundation of any wealth that you want. And one of my most favorite things out of books that I read, right, was Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, the founder and creator of Nike. There was a moment in time in the early stages of the business that he actually, if he didn't own the house, the company would, if he didn't own a home, Nike would have been toast, because he had to actually leverage the equity in his home and use his home as collateral in order to keep the business afloat, right? So it's real important for us to, as a community, as a people, to start shifting our mindset on ownership. Like, and ownership don't necessarily mean that, like, you gotta buy a house and go live there. It just means, like, ownership of the assets that put families and generations in a better place, that have like a better social economic standing. Like, we need that. We need ownership. We need the ownership of assets, or else we'll continue to be on this perpetual hamster wheel, going nowhere at all. Not even fast, just going nowhere, period, right? So that's it. Again, leveraging equity through private lending. So, you know, to touch back on the debt thing, to connect it to the debt thing, is, all right, cool. Sometimes we can build up all of this equity in these businesses and these assets, and we can say, like, well, I don't really want to put it into more hard assets like property or risk it in the stock market or whatever. Let's just do private lending and set our own interest rates. It's an easy, low maintenance way to earn interest on capital in the marketplace, because the primary function of money is to make more money. Money is not for bills or for consuming. The primary function of money is to go get more money. And then later on, that's why the slogan is build now, borrow later. You get money first, you invest it, let it compound, and then you can do whatever you want to do with it. Like, our culture, our community, like, we got a terrible mindset and a terrible relationship around money, man. We think it's just to go get it and go. And as fast as we get it, give it back. You really think about it, like, it's kind of crazy, because we don't really own nothing. So everything that we most of the money that we earn is to go back into either servicing, like, just living, or I should say existing, because if you're working to pay bills, you ain't living, you existing, right? And if it ain't that, then it's, you know what I mean, to be on some bullshit, like on some bogus shit, like popping bottles or trying to look like we got money, you know what I mean? And that's unsustainable, because yeah, you could probably do that for a season or a half a season, but you can't do it for multiple seasons, because you don't really got it, right? Like, you gotta, whatever you're doing to get it, none of my business, but eventually it'll run out, because it's not making more money, and you're the one that has to, like, perpetually be in motion to get that money. Whether if you out hustling or whatever, like, you risking your freedom and your life to get that. Yeah, it might be, the money might be coming in fast or whatever, but you still risking a lot to get it. And if you had a 9-to-5 job, like, you just giving your life away for that. And there's nothing wrong with work, but you gotta work with intention. There has to be an end goal at the end of all of that work. Like, who really want to work 40, 50, 60 years to retire and then try to live off of maybe $1,100 a month? That's kind of wild, especially if, like, you've been working all your life. Most of us start working mad early. So if you just been working your entire life, and then to go try to fight to live off for $1,100, $1,200 a month, maybe $1,500 if you're lucky. That's basic. And what happens when you fall sick or whatever the case is? Like, you put yourself in a tough situation. And that's why I always say, like, it ain't necessarily about owning a business, man. Like, all of us can't be entrepreneurs, man. Like, the same way not everybody's meant to be parents. Not everybody's meant to be married. Not everybody's meant to be in a committed relationship. Not everybody needs or deserves to be an entrepreneur. What you need to do, what you need to focus on is learning how to invest, right? I always use this example where I say there's really nothing wrong with renting if you own real estate that's producing for you. If it's producing equity on an annual basis and it's producing cash flow on a monthly basis, who cares? Who's in a better position? The person who own $1 million home and can just afford it, like just afford it. If there's any correction or there's any loss in income, whether it's that one person or their spouse, then they got to get rid of that because they won't be able to service the debt on the mortgage. So who's in a better position? That person who owned $1 million house and they could just afford it, or the person who rents but they own $1 million in real estate? Obviously it's the latter, right? Like that's just common sense. So ownership is imperative, but it shows up in different ways. So we kind of gotta get away from the stigma of renting. Like renting is convenience, right? Like it's all lifestyle. Like if you make 300 grand a year and you got 2 million, 3 million in the stock market or whatever, like, yo, you're good. So it really don't matter if you own a house or not, because you could pull all your capital out of the stock market and go buy a property. Renting is fun, but it's just, it can't just be in vain. If you rent and you choose to go just invest in the stock market and say, fuck real estate and leave all of that aside, cool. But like, at least you're investing. That's why I said, not everybody should own a business, but every single last one of us should be investing in some capacity. Like, it's just no way around it. Because like I said it today, the tax code is set up for the investor. Like, and then after is like the business owner. And why I don't really put the business owner on the same level is like, just because it's different levels of business ownership. Like, if I own Terry's window cleaning service, if I don't go to work, I don't make no money, realistically. But if I own Window Corp and I sell windows to developers and shit like that, and they buy windows from me wholesale to put on the homes that they build or the condos that they build, I'm in a way better position. So that aspect of business ownership, like, yeah, that part too, and that's still like an investor when you really break it down. Like, it's still an investor. So the tax code, the way the tax law is written, is set up for the investor. So you should be learning to invest as quickly as possible. And the last point is the purchase of minority or majority stakes in businesses. To my point just now, 100% of nothing, 100% of zero is zero, right? And I'd much rather own a majority stake / controlling interest in a $1 billion corporation than own 100% of $1 million business. $1 million business can be wiped out tomorrow by a myriad of things, by a laundry list of different things. So it's not sustainable. Like, yeah, it's pride, but what's the pride if, you know, like you get stepped on or stomped out like the cockroach that you are in the grand scheme of things. Not literally saying that if you own a small business or whatever, you're a cockroach. Obviously not. Most major corporations, Fortune 500 corporations that we know today, started off as small businesses, started off as family business. It's not the point that I'm making, but it's like that foolish pride of like, oh, you know, like I own whatever, I control whatever. It's like, nah. If you had the opportunity to own Nike or own Percy Miller sneakers, aka Masterpiece sneakers, like obviously you would own Nike. It's a behemoth. It's an incumbent. Like, cause you know there is security and stability in that. You know what I'm saying? Like, when on a small scale, like you're not really an sometimes, most times on a small scale, like you're not really an entrepreneur, dog. Like you just own a job. You own a job. Yeah, you can make your own hours or whatever. But if you're not there, for the most part, that business ain't doing nothing. Like if I don't open Terry's window store or Terry's shoe shop, like it's closed. And then I'm also incurring expenses at the same time, because like when you starting off, more than likely you leasing, so you got rent to pay and you got your other expenses, whatever business loans you might have took in order to get the startup capital to renovate the office or build out the office, whatever. You got your electrical, water, so on and so forth, right? So it just makes more sense to have minority stakes in a major business or majority stakes in a major business. Obviously, you know what I mean? Like majority is generations down the line. But if we invest in our own business, or if we invest a minority stake in the right businesses at the early stages, yeah, maybe in time, like we'll have a massive enough stake to where we can move into a majority position, or we can liquidate and take that and go purchase a majority stake in something else, right? So it's like the mindset and the thought behind everything. We really got to sit back and start asking ourselves why, and really start deprogramming ourselves and then reprogramming ourselves with the right information, so we can ultimately make the right moves. And this in itself was like another extra hour-ish maybe of just conversation and just insight. So I'm gonna save this, I'm gonna end it right here, and then everybody had a chance to check it out when I post it. So you know what I mean, everybody who's gonna look at this in the future, y'all know where to find me. I'm open to conversations, I'm easy to get a hold of, and I'm just here. I don't want to do this by myself. I want everybody to come with me, because I want partners. I don't really want dependents or just clients, one-off clients or whatever. Like, I want y'all to become entrenched in this journey, in this information with me as well. And then y'all could go off and do your own things. Like, we could all be on equal footing. Like, I don't care if anybody gets any of this information and passes me. Because if you pass me on the way, I'm in a better position, because I can always link with you. I can always utilize you in some kind of capacity, right? So that's pretty much what I wanted to say and the points that I wanted to communicate, because I didn't really get a chance to when we did it the other day. So shout out to everybody that was there the other day, and shout out to everybody that gonna watch this now. I'm out of here.